Hello, welcome to Shaka Extra Time. I am Paul Indiho, and today we'll be talking about Africans in the diaspora who go on to be superstars. Joining me to discuss this is the one and only Shaka Sali, aka the Kabale Kid. Hello, Shaka.
Hello, Ndugu Paul.
How are you?
I have to say that I remain simple, easy, and as some of my fans have suggested, an awesome son of Mother Africa.
Let's start with Daniel Kaluuya, who recently won an Academy Award for the role he played in Judas and the Black Messiah. Man, I watched that film. I thought that he was remarkably impressive.
Well, good for him, and he definitely deserves congratulations. Unfortunately, I haven't had the time to watch the movie, but I certainly look forward to enjoying it.
A lot of people, the likes of Daniel Kaluuya, have not had it easy. They start from the bottom, but somehow they manage to beat all the odds and stand out. What does it take?
It takes a hell lot, not only of effort, but a lot of super hard work. It also takes a lot of commitment. It also takes the ability or the idea of the individual believing in himself or herself to be the best that he could be or to be the best that she could be. You are competing globally here. You are talking about world class. They have to find only one person to give that award. And you have to be the best in the world among those that are competing that very day to be on top of them. And if you are a person who looks like you and me, Ndugu Paul, the formula is very simple. The only way you can do that is to be the best. Without being the best, the dominant culture is not even going to perceive you to be in play. I remember that in the 1970s, the then Ugandan leader, General Idi Amin Dada, used to talk about the unfairness in international competition that African athletes face. As an old boxer, he used to advise Ugandan boxers that if you go in international competitions, the only way you are going to win the match is making sure that you get a technical knockout. You basically hit and floor your opponent so that, in fact, he may not rise up to the count. That way, you have a lot of opportunities to win. But if it is going to be up to winning on points, for the most part, you are not going to be likely to be the winner. And in the 4 decades that I have lived in the United States of America, both going to school and working professionally, I have found out that the former Ugandan leader, the late General Idi Amin Dada, may in fact have been correct.
Some people have called him a genius. That is somebody who had a vision, who looked at things and somehow analyzed them or made the predictions that have come to pass.
Well, he was obviously a very intelligent man. If he hadn't been a very intelligent man, no matter what circumstances he had to work under, there is no way he could possibly have worked his way to the top in his country. He held the highest position in the land for 9 years. You may not agree with some of his policies. You may not agree with some of his pronouncements, and I definitely didn't. That is the reason I ended up in the United States of America. But there's no question that he was arguably a very intelligent man.
Shaka, for purposes of our audience, maybe try to break it down for our audience. What does the Academy Award mean?
It depends on whether that audience is familiar with films, what is called movies here in the United States, and is called cinema in most of Africa, and indeed in the United Kingdom. You are talking about acting. These are actors who basically do it in an organization that is the best in the world. You're talking about Hollywood. To win an Academy Award, which is known as an Oscar, it means you are the best in that particular category, in that particular year. You could say that for those who are familiar with Nobel Prizes, for example, it is the equivalent of a Nobel Prize in the arts. Mm-hmm. But in any case, whatever metric you use, whatever explanation you use or you come by, it is arguably a stamp that is given to an individual who has more than excelled at his artistic craft.
A lot of Ugandans were excited about Kaluuya's win, but at the same time, you had a lot of Ugandans who were not excited. There's been this feud on social media saying that rather Ugandans are engrossed in a debate over whether Kaluuya's success can be claimed as a win for Uganda, the home country of his parents, and whether he should simply be celebrated like any other international star. I've seen some of the chatter online. People are almost going at it to box each other because they're trying to say, yes, every Ugandan now wants to take credit for his win, and yet Uganda has not done anything to support the arts. People who are actors, the Ugandan government really hasn't done much. So what's your take on that, Shaka?
Both sides are correct. And as a matter of fact, both sides feel the way they do because Daniel Kaluuya made them very proud that very evening in Hollywood. Made them proud because if, for example, they were Ugandans, or came from Uganda, for that matter, it meant that one of theirs, at least for the first time, if my history is correct, one of theirs became the best at his work. And if there are Ugandans who have never lived in Uganda, but they are Ugandans or they are Africans, or if they are British, where Kaluuya was born, and where Kaluuya is a citizen, because sociologically, Kaluuya is British. legally, Kaluuya is British. And so the British also have a reason to feel very proud. So you are basically looking at an individual who can actually be celebrated internationally. At the end of the day, in fact, he's a human being. And he has done the best at his category of acting. You know, we could also look at it in the broad context. I have often told you before that success, the word itself, success, when it is invoked, it has many, many fathers. It has many aunts. It has many brothers, many sisters. You can't believe it has many, many friends. But failure itself invokes a different type of reaction. It is said that failure, in fact, is an orphan. How many times have you heard people quarreling about owning somebody who has, for example, broken into a bank and is a highway robber? Nobody wants to be identified with that particular individual, probably not even his parents.
But Shaka, maybe to push back on that, a lot of Africans celebrate politicians who have literally stolen or broken into banks.
I'm afraid you may actually have a point there, but I believe that the reason, in fact, they celebrate them is not because they think those people are thieves. You know, even in a country like the United States of America, when you are a corporate official and you end up in corruption, stealing bank money, stealing corporation money, and what have you, guess what? They call that a white-collar crime. And that money needs to be invested so that someone can benefit from it. And so the world is not fair, Ndugu. But the fact of the matter is, if you succeed, you can be guaranteed that suddenly you probably know who your aunts are, who your cousins are, who your uncles are. There was, in fact, an African American who was a basketball superstar with the Philadelphia 49ers. He used to be called Moses Malone. Moses was a great basketball player, if I remember correctly. He said, until he became a basketball superstar and probably became one of the first individuals to earn a multi-million-dollar salary for a season, he did not know who the cousins were. But suddenly, Moses Malone had cousins from Texas. He was from Texas. Cousins from the East Coast and what have you. If you have a relative, for example, in Hollywood, at the top of their game, you can be assured that they can expect to have a lot of relatives looking for them. Because it's a good thing and it makes you feel good. Because even though in reality you may not really benefit, psychologically you do, because you are also a winner by association. But I think, to be really very serious, African countries should begin, if they haven't, to establish relationships with the people who come from those countries, who end up being in the diaspora. They should identify those people and begin some kind of formal collaboration, so that if one of the members of the diaspora who happens to come from your country succeeds at world-class level, you indeed have legitimate and good reason to celebrate together, rather than to wait and see something happen and you claim it.
Shaka, you make a great point. One time I was interviewing the former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, and he talked about why there are so many Nigerians in the diaspora who have succeeded at world class level. He said that the best and the brightest end up leaving to look for greener pastures. And that at the time, one of his goals was to figure out a way of trying to attract these people, maybe to encourage them to come back home and maybe either partner with government or do something with the government to uplift their country. And this is a story that can be replicated across the entire continent. You have a lot of people who end up leaving their countries to go and look for greener pastures, and when they get there, they excel. They become the best that they can be.
I think that is a very, very good point in Buguforo, and I think that former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan was very visionary. That he is the man that he was the type of man who actually saw very far, like a giraffe, because that probably even explains why he was the first person in Nigerian political history as an incumbent president to lose an election on his watch and react by conceding defeat with grace. You know, there are some African leaders who are very visionary, who see very far. I happened to be in Uganda back in 1997, and I believe that is the time when, in fact, you and I first met. You were a student at Makerere University, Kampala. And I think I remember addressing the students who were engaged in mass communication and related subjects. I had gone in part to interview Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni about what Uganda was doing, for example, in the war in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And at the time, a former Tanzanian founding president, Mwalimu Rais Julius Kambarage Nyerere, happened to be a guest of the Ugandan president. And I showed the interest in meeting the former Tanzanian president. And Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni was kind enough to direct his then press secretary, Ms. Hope Chivenjeri, to in fact take me to introduce me to President Nyerere. I remember we went to Entebbe International Airport, where President Nyerere was waiting for a flight back home. And I was also later to catch a flight for Bujumbura. And I remember meeting President Nyerere and thanking him for what he did for Africa when he was in office. And I remember thanking him, along with his colleague, the Zambian founding president, Dr. David Kenneth Kaunda, Egyptian president, Colonel Gamal Abdel Nasser, and at one time president of Algeria, Benibera. And I said, you and your colleague leaders when it came to Africa, you did not see any boundaries or borders in your minds. It was Africa. And because of that, I began to regard you as my social, political patron saint. We talked for about 1 hour with President Nyerere. He had been accompanied by the Tanzanian High Commissioner to Uganda and his personal assistant. Apparently, the Tanzanian envoy to Uganda was remarkably impressed by my interaction with his boss. And so he volunteered to say, Shaka, you are a very smart guy. What are you doing in America? Why don't you come back to your country, Uganda, and help Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni to develop your country? Before I could open my mouth, Ndugu Paul, President Nyerere opened his. And he began by asking the ambassador of Tanzania, what did you say? Barozi? Barozi is
Ambassador.
Ambassador in Kiswahili. And he said, why don't you understand and why don't you appreciate the role that Shaka Sali is playing for Africa in the Americas? You are looking at our son, who is Africa's ambassador, who is a social, cultural, political bridge between the continent of Africa and the Americas. I could not believe it because I thought that President Nyerere probably was actually going to echo the same views of the ambassador. But I must say, I was remarkably impressed that not only did this man love Africa, but he in fact saw very, very, very far.
Very interesting. So I guess going forward, I'm going to start addressing you as Your Excellency, Ambassador Plenipotential Extraordinary.
Extraordinary. He actually said, even though he serves as our ambassador to Washington for the entire Africa, we do not even pay him a salary. That is how great he is. Nyerere argued. Some people get drunk with power and ignorance and start talking about the diaspora are people who are beneficiaries or subjects of brain drain. But in fact, you could turn what they call brain drain into a sort of brain gain so that you can actually leverage the knowledge, the experience, the professionalism, the exposure that you have acquired for your people back home, directly or indirectly.
Shaka, to echo the ambassador's sentiment and former President Nyerere's kind words, you've played a big role or a major role at the Voice of America. You've been highly successful at what you do. If a young person was looking at you, what would you tell him? What does it take for them to succeed?
First of all, I would say that the formula really is very simple. You first and foremost have to be in a position to identify what you want. I have found out, Ndugu Paul, that a lot of our people do not know what they actually want. Because if you know what you want, then it follows that the next step will be for you to look for the appropriate tools that you will need to navigate and negotiate your way to your desired destination. You must be willing to work very hard, not 8 to 4. You must be thinking in terms of working like 15 hours in a day of 24. And once you actually start working, especially in America, you know as well as I do that you have to be the best in order for the dominant culture even to perceive that you are in fact present. And I'm saying this from experience. You have to be able to jump higher. You have to be able to run faster. Whatever you are engaged in, I'm afraid you have to be the best.
How about people who said that yes, you can be the best at what you do, you can strive to be the best that there is, but at the end of the day, when there is no opportunity knocking on your door, it means it's useless. You know, there are a lot of young people out there who say that I strive to be the best at what I do, but unfortunately, they haven't had luck of finding the right job or being in the right place at the right time where they can excel.
If you are the best and you have integrity and you can get along with other people, you are not arrogant, you do not have a huge ego. You, for example, exude humility. You listen more than you open your mouth. I can guarantee that you can actually go very far. Because I can assure you that if that were not the case, I wouldn't have been the one-time obscure kid from Cavalry. Come to America, go to school, enter the job market, hold a job for the last 29 years at the Voice of America. It wouldn't have happened. You have to be willing to work for it. You have to be willing to believe in yourself that you can do it, because in fact you can. But again, like I said, you have to be willing to be the best that you can be. And by the way, if you become the best that you can be assured to compete above competition, which makes it very easy for you. But it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of determination. And above and beyond, you have to be able to respect yourself as you would wish to be respected by others. Because you know, you could actually be a very intelligent individual to the extent that you could even be a genius. But guess what? If you are going to move from point A to point B, there is someone who is going to be in a position to open that door when you knock at it.
Well, thank you so much, Shaka, for those kind words. I guess I will end it there. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome, Ndugu.